your last slice. I think the pizza's just about gone. So 14 pizzas and 100 Democrats goes quick, huh? Welcome to the January 2012 meeting of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee County. I'd ask you please to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks to all of you for being here. As you can see from both the packed room and the agenda document, we have a packed agenda. If you want a seat, there are a number of seats available, and a couple of volunteers are very kindly bringing some more chairs out, so please feel free to sit and be comfortable. I'm going to have a number of people recognized here at the front end, just so we can make sure that they're recognized in case there's an exodus as people think about their 9 p.m. television shows. So first, let me recognize the elected officials who've joined us tonight. First, I want to welcome a good friend, the alderman from the 4th District representing downtown in the Marquette neighborhood, Bob Bauman. He's almost my county supervisor, but not quite, because I live a little north of his district, but he's fighting hard for the progressive cause. Jason Haas from the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors. I want to recognize a candidate for judge who's here, and she's running in branch 23. She's asked just to be recognized, so that's 2 minutes you get back right there. That's Lindsay Grady. Thanks for being here, Lindsay. And then we have a couple of candidates who have asked to speak. The mayor should be here in just a couple of minutes. We're going to hear from him and then from County Executive Falk and the rest of our agenda. But I want to ask Carolina Stark, please, to come on up. Carolina is running for judge in branch 17. I'm excited to have you here. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carolina Stark, and I'm running for Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge because the Circuit Court is the place where I think that I can combine my professional experience and my dedication to community service. So I graduated from UW Law School in 2000. Can you hear me now? All right. So I'll skip the first part because I'm going into my 2 minutes, but I graduated from UW Law School in 2002. And for the last 5 years, I've been serving as an administrative law judge in the state's unemployment benefit program. So I have proven experience conducting legal hearings and making decisions based on the law, and I've been doing that in a fast-paced and high-volume environment while maintaining the steady demeanor required of an impartial decision maker. For the last 3.5 years, I also served on the City of Milwaukee's Fire and Police Commission by appointment of Mayor Tom Barrett and unanimous confirmation of the Common Council. So I have proven dedication not only to public safety, but also to community service, in addition to serving as a bilingual poll worker on election days, as a board member of the Wisconsin Hispanic Lawyers Association, and as an active member of my neighborhood association, the Historic Concordia neighborhood, where Alderman Bauman lives. I'm a first-generation college student. I was raised in a bilingual, bicultural household. I speak Spanish fluently, and my Hispanic heritage has always played an important part in both my professional and my personal experience. I am proud to say that I live in the city of Milwaukee on 29th and State. I've been there for almost 10 years now, and I'm also a union member. I'm a state employee union member as an administrative law judge in the Wisconsin State Attorneys Association, and I'm proud to say that my union voted to recertify last November. So as a circuit court judge, I promise to draw upon my legal and decision-making experience to continue making decisions based in the law, and when the law requires me to exercise discretion, I'm going to make the tough decisions necessary for a strong community, but doing that in a manner consistent with the community's values. I will remember that the public has entrusted me to do this, and I ask not only for your trust, but for your votes, both on February 21st and on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolina. Now, the only qualification for judge is not keeping your 2 minutes, but I tell you, if it was, that was fantastic. And she's been out there on the campaign trail with Lindsay and so many others, and we appreciate them. Let me point out a couple of other people. We do have a school board member here from Brown Deer, making sure the north side of this county stays progressive in its education values. That's Dennis Louder. Thanks for being there. We have an assembly candidate from the 10th Assembly District, someone who you all know as a huge part and a huge leader in the fight to recall the 8th Senate District, and he's running in the 10th Assembly District now. That's Christopher Rowe. Christopher, please stand. Thanks for being here. John, are you here? John emailed me. John Pokrant? Come on up, John. So let me introduce John Pokrant. He is a candidate for Wauwatosa mayor. And I tell you, we got Democrats in every corner of this county, and we're going to elect a Democrat in Wauwatosa as our mayor. So come on,
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Sachin, for putting me on the agenda at the very last minute. As some of you who are running campaigns know, everything is last minute these days, right? Well, I wanted to say a lot of things have changed in my race since I spoke here in November. The incumbent mayor has resigned and taken a position within the county. 3 challengers emerged other than myself. One of them has since pulled out. So I am facing a February 21st primary. What hasn't changed is my dedication to moving the city of Wauwatosa forward. I am focused on supporting local businesses, supporting the redevelopment of our North Avenue Business District, which is going to strengthen our neighborhoods, supporting our police and fire, public safety services, our amenities like parks and our library. I don't believe that you can cut your way out of things. I think that these things are what defines the quality of a community, and it's what makes Wauwatosa desirable, as a place to live. I know that my neighborhood is full of new residents, and they came here for our schools, and they came here for our safe streets, and they came here for our urban lifestyle. So basically, that's what I'm all about, and that's what I'm going to fight to protect. And please vote for me on February 21st if you're a Wauwatosa resident, and again on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And good luck to you. I'm sure there's a lot of volunteers in Wauwatosa and Grassroots Tosa who are ready to fight for a new mayor in that city. We have a couple of announcements, and then we're going to move on to the main program. I want to first invite up Wendy Strout from Emerge, who's making sure that we have strong, talented, trained Democratic women ready to take office at every level. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. As I just said, I am not a candidate, but we are training Democratic women, and actually we have several Emerge women here today. A lot of them are in the back, but Emerge is training Democratic women who are planning on running for office, and we train them to be successful. And we're actually having 2 big events this week. One is in Madison tomorrow, but I thought you guys might be more interested in the Milwaukee one. We're going to have an event in Milwaukee on Thursday at the Art Bar River West. It's going to be a great event. We're going to have some giveaways. We're going to have people talking about our program, and really just talking about how we are helping and taking back our state. So we're going to have some flyers in the back, and I hope to see you all there. You're all invited. So thank you very much, and thank you for supporting the work that we do.
How many people are here for the first time? Okay, thank you. Thanks for all. If you haven't paid your dues yet, we ask you to do so. How many people have been to a Democratic Party of Milwaukee County meeting more than 10 times? All right. So look, this is a pretty active group. I want all the people who've been here more than 10 times to tell all the people who've been here once or twice that this is how every meeting goes. They're this efficient, they're this packed, and we're having so much fun. I'd like to invite Stephanie Finley to come on up here now. Stephanie is the chair of the 4th Congressional District, and she's also chair of the African American Caucus of the State Democratic Party, and she has a couple of announcements that we want to make sure we hit.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I come before you tonight to invite all of you to our Wisconsin Democratic Party Black Caucus 2nd Annual Black History reception. It will be February 18th, and we're still ironing out the details for a location. But what I wanted to talk to you about as to why we're having it on the 18th is that that's GOTV weekend for our spring primary. We need to make sure that we get everyone out to vote in our spring primary as Democrats so that we can get the data that we need on that election day as to how disenfranchised our constituents and members of our party are. So I'm asking for everyone to come out and participate on that February 18th. We will make sure that the emails go out. We have State Senator Nina Turner from Ohio coming off the win of their collective bargaining in November. going to be our keynote speaker, and so I really want everyone to come up, and we want to build to make sure that the room is packed. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. And two more announcements before we get into our main program here. The first is, I forget what the first one was. All right, the second one. I'll remember the second one. The first one I'll come back to. The second one is we're excited as always to have our spring fundraiser take place around Mardi Gras. Now, Mardi Gras this year, the date is a little bit screwy, right? Because Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, is on Tuesday, February 21st. Some of the people in this room might be engaged in a campaign on primary day, right? February 21st. So we said, well, we can't have it on election day, right? Because it's an election day, there's a lot of stuff happening. Maybe we could have it the night before, February 20th. Well, then we said, well, wait a second. There's an election the next day. People are focused on GOTV. So then we said, well, what about the day after, right? And that was Ash Wednesday. And we thought the mayor may not like it if we had an event on Ash Wednesday. So we pushed it to the next week. For some of you, this means Lent will only be 33 days this year. That's your choice. It's a free country with freedom of religion. But Heather's up here to tell you about our event.
Thanks, husband. I'm impressed that he at least knows the number of Lent days. Okay, so we're going to quick do our quiz. So February 28th, that's the day of our Mardi Gras event at the Wicked Hop. It's our annual Dem Team fundraiser. And again, it is a Tuesday. It's not exactly Fat Tuesday. So again, what day is that annual Mardi Gras fundraiser going to be? February 28th. Thank you. I'm not going to do it as many times because we got to keep it rolling. But what day? What? And it's before Mardi Gras, actually, or is it? Oh, yeah, thanks. So, and we're also working on a musical guest, and it's always a fun fundraiser, and Dem Team has been doing excellent things, and obviously we need to keep the funds coming in so we can support actions to recall our fair governor. So, please, I want to see you on the 28th, and be sure to be engaged on the primary on the 21st. And I also am proud to say, and we might hear more from our treasurer, from Sachin, but we brought in about $13,000 with our annual awards dinner. So I'm really proud of all of you for everyone who was involved with that. And I want to acknowledge our Democrat of the Year, of course, Marley Knott.
Thank you.
You thought it was cool that Miss America was from Wisconsin, but we got the Democrat of the Year right here. So I'm really excited to jump now into the main program and introduce our next guest. Now, he's no stranger to any of you. He's been with us through thick and thin. He's been either my congressman or my mayor for just about my entire adult life. And I remember when I met him, I was 18 years old. He was only like 25. Nobody's going to buy that one. And we were campaigning on the campus of the UW Milwaukee campus, and just shaking hands, talking to people. I was involved in the College Democrats, and he came up and he had a great time. He said, you know, we're talking to students. They really care about the issues that we're facing today. This was the same ballot that Russ Feingold was going to be elected on. It was the same ballot that Bill Clinton and Al Gore were going to be elected on for the first time. And we thought, hey, this is great. You know, we've met this guy. He's running for Congress. We're just a bunch of teenagers. And he spent an hour and a half shaking hands. And then 4 days went by, and he called, and he said, can I come back? And then another week went by, and then he said, I want to come back again. And he kept fighting for that youth vote. And he kept fighting to make sure that they would not only go out there and vote for him, but that they would vote for that ticket of Democrats that was going to bring change. As we ended the Iraq War, and as we were coming out of a recession. And it's that commitment to democratic values and to engaging everybody. He's been there with us through thick and thin. He's our mayor, Tom Barrett.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening. I like the energy in the room. It's great to see so many people here, and I think it's a sign of the times. Where people are very, very interested in such. I talked about when I was at UWM. The fact of the matter is, It's fun to campaign at UWM. That's why I was going there. I already knew I was going to win the election. It was a general election, but I thought, I want to go where people are having fun. That's why I went to UWM. So just so you know, let the truth be told, almost 20 years later. But I wanted to stop by tonight because this is such an important time. And really to talk about government and politics at 3 different levels. And I want to begin at the local level. I am running for re-election as mayor, and I would be honored to have the support of anyone who lives in the city of Milwaukee with your vote on February 21st and April 3rd. We've done a lot the last 8 years, a lot together, and there's a lot more to be done. If you go through the city, if you go to the Menominee Valley, for example, that's a part of the city where you needed an all-terrain vehicle 6 years ago to get from one end of the valley to another, and now there are jobs all throughout that valley. And that's something I'm very proud of. I'm proud of the work that we're doing at the old brewery site, where we are transforming that, making a new neighborhood. The work that we are doing at the Tower Automotive site, where we're trying to make that come back as well, the old 30th Street Industrial Corridor, where we are putting literally millions of dollars into that corridor because it's all about jobs. And I think all of us recognize the challenges that we have in the city with poverty, with the number of people, in particular children, who are living below the poverty line. And that's why we're focusing on jobs. That's why we're focusing on issues like infant mortality and reducing the teenage pregnancy rate, because those are issues that really have an impact on people's lives. So I know that there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And again, a lot of people in this room have been very, very helpful with that. And I want you to know how much I appreciate it and would, again, be honored to have your support. The next level, of course, is the state level. And congratulations to everyone here who has been involved in the recall effort. Give yourselves a round of applause. And I want to give a special shout out to someone who's not here, who deserves our thanks, and that's Mike Tate, the chairman of the state party. It is fair to say that he did a phenomenal job in managing expectations. Because I think the Republicans would have liked nothing more than to say, oh yeah, sure, they got 540,000, but they didn't reach their goal. I have not heard one person in this state, Democrat or Republican, say they didn't reach their goal. And the reason for that is because we shattered the goal. As much work that has been done there, now the real work needs to be done. Because we don't know exactly when the election's going to be. We don't know exactly who the candidate or candidates are going to be. But I would say right now, more than any other time in the history of this party, we cannot do what Democrats did in the 1980s when I first came in. And we used to joke that when Democrats formed a firing squad, they lined up in a circle. Yeah. And I think each and every one of us, from all parts of the party, from all parts of the state, have to make the pledge that we are going to come out of whatever transpires over the next few months, and we are going to come out as a unified party. Yeah. Yeah. If we don't, so I just want to say that there are still many chapters left to be written in this book, but I think that's the one underlying theme that each and every one of us have to remember. I just want to speak briefly on the third level of government, the national level of government. And there it's fun to watch the Republicans run for president. I served in Congress with Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich, as he soars to the top of the Republican heap, is causing conniption fits among many people in the Republican Party because of their fear what will happen. And I think we all understand what's going to happen. If he wins this primary, it is going to be a very lively campaign in the fall. But quite honestly, I think it bodes well for President Obama. And I think regardless of whichever these candidates come through this thing, I think people are beginning to understand that as difficult a time as this is, and it continues to be a very difficult time economically, and people would be surprised, I think oftentimes, if you ask this question, because your initial inclination is to say no, but if you think about it, the answer is really yes. And that question is the old Ronald Reagan question. Is this country better off now than it was 4 years ago? And you really have to go back and think about this, because we as Americans are blessed by having a short memory. because of TV and video games and all of our distractions. We are blessed by having a short memory. But if you go back 4 years in time, as difficult as it is now, and the jobless rate is still high, it's too high, foreclosures are still too numerous, there are still too many people who can't afford health care. 4 years ago, this country was really on the edge of a depression. And we had the auto industry that was about to go under. And we had a president who stepped forward and said, we are going to do everything we can to allow this economy to come back. And we have now seen 22 consecutive months of job growth in this country. And we should be happy with that. Still not enough jobs. Still not enough jobs, but 22 consecutive months of job growth. Now the irony of that is, and this again will go back to the state level, and this is actually somewhat unbelievable, that if you look at the national statistics, with 22 months, consecutive months of job growth, including Wisconsin, then you go to Wisconsin in the last 6 months, and under Governor Walker, every month for the last 6 months, since his budget went into effect, this state has lost jobs. And that's because he has not been concentrating on creating jobs. What he did is he came in, and we all know what the phrase was. He said he was going to drop the bomb. That was his phrase. That's nobody else's phrase. His phrase, he was going to drop the bomb. And that's what he did. And he has created this war in the state of Wisconsin, where he's pitted people against each other. And by pitting people against each other, he has taken his eye off the prize that every Wisconsinite wants, and that is the creation of more jobs. So here we have a president who is focused on creating jobs, and a governor who is now focused on saving his political hide. And that speaks volumes, I think, as to what's going on. But there's going to be a lot more work that needs to be done at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level. And you are the people that make it happen. So I wanted to stop by tonight to thank you for your past support, to ask you for your future support, and to let you know that we have a lot of fighting to do together again. Thank you very much.
We thank the mayor for being here and for his leadership in the city. And we're excited that there's so many good leaders here in the Democratic Party. One thing we don't worry about is that when we're ready to go out there and take on Scott Walker, that we're going to have the best of the best. And I'm lucky to introduce next, in just a moment, one of those people who's put herself out there and is clearly one of the best of the best. Let me just quickly introduce a couple of people who came in during the last few minutes. One is a stalwart of this party, of this county of progressive leadership. That's Representative Fred Kessler, who's here. Fred. We sometimes like to refer to him as Fred Jr. Because he's also a progressive stalwart, but he doesn't have the years of experience yet. And that's Senator Chris Larson. Thanks for being here, Senator. I'd like to Tracy come in over there somewhere. We have a candidate for supervisor, I think in the 13th district. If I got 18th. The 18th district. They all look the same to me. Please stand up. Tracy Corder, who's fighting the progressive fight up in the northwest part of the county. Tracy's the older one of the two. And, oh, look who just joined us. Somebody else who's a progressive stalwart, who stands up every day for those who have the least to make sure that we have a progressive future in the city of Milwaukee, and that's State Senator Lena Taylor. They always keep popping up by popcorn. Thank you, Lena. And I see that State Senator Carpenter is here, also a tremendous leader on the south side. Tim's running for city treasurer. Do you want to speak, sir? All right. Another 2 minutes saved. Tim Carpenter. The next person I want to introduce is someone who I really consider a dear friend. Someone who has fought the fight for so many years. First, as I knew her, as an assistant attorney general, making sure that corporations and people follow the environmental laws of the state, and made sure that the great traditions of Gaylord Nelson and John Muir were followed as the state's public intervener. She then went on to be the Dane County Executive. And as Dane County Executive, she proved what we all know to be true. That if you have a good business sense, that if you have progressive values, that if you treat people fairly, workers, taxpayers, business owners, voters, that you will have prosperity, that you will grow jobs, that you will grow the economy, and that you will build a better future. And that's why Madison and Dane County are some of the most desired places to live. She, from there, has gone around the state in the last 6 months to say, hey, we need a new future. And there's no one who worked harder at that level from corner to corner of this state to make sure that people were inspired, that people were filled with energy, that people knew what the issues were, so that we could get the signatures, that all of you could get the signatures to make sure that we had an election this year for governor, that we recalled Scott Walker. And now she's put herself out there as a tremendous leader, as a front runner, as someone who wanted to get out in front to be the next governor of the state of Wisconsin. She's your friend, she's my friend, and I'm proud to have her here tonight. Former Dane County Executive Kathleen Falk.
Thank you, and welcoming back to my hometown. Thank you. Sachin is doing a fabulous job chairing this fabulous Milwaukee County Dems. You know, you are. I was going to make a little comment there, but I have to say right from the beginning, because if I go home without doing this, Peter won't let me in the house. A big hello from Peter Bach to all of his buddies there. He remembers when he was the chair and there was a smaller number in the room, and so that's why I shout out to all of you. It is fabulous. I am just so excited. I am so passionate. I'm so eager for us to go to the next chapter. We've done round one. We did what the Republicans say we couldn't do. They said, oh, this summer people are going to get tired. They're going to go on vacation. The recall will never get off the ground. What happened?
Doubled it.
We doubled it. We got organized. We took charge. We got together. They said, oh, they'll never get 540,000 signatures. And we just went. And we gave up Christmas, and we gave up turkey dinner, and we were out in the cold, and we were out in the wind, and what did we do? We doubled it. 1 million strong.
Yeah.
The nation's watching, our fellow brothers and sisters are watching, and we are going to take back our state. Sachin kindly noted that your friend and mine, Peter Bach, and I, things are meant to be in the world. You know, I stepped down after being the longest serving county executive in Dane County because I had one more big, hard thing I wanted to do in my life, and moving kids out of poverty. And I didn't know what way that would be. Who would have guessed a year ago that Scott Walker would do to our state what he did? Tear us apart, turn us upside down, demonize, polarize, scapegoat people, when all we want in our state is the same things, and we don't ask for too much. Good education for our kids, some decent health care, clean air and water, and a decent paying job. That's all we ask for here. It isn't too much. And I know that because I'm from right here. So many of you know, but for the 11 people who are new to the meeting tonight, I was born 30th in Greenfield, big German and Irish family, Falk and Slattery. Now, if I was a member of the Falk Corporation, do you think I'd be here? But I'm more proud. My grandfather was a bus driver. Well, at first he was the trolley driver, and then they went out of business. He was a bus driver in Milwaukee the rest of his life. I have his union pin. I've got it in my purse. So I grew up in this neighborhood where the biggest fights in my family were German or Irish, which one is better. Not a war you can win. And then the biggest fight, of course, was, is Leon's better than Gillies? Another war you can't win. So these are my roots. My whole family is still here. We owned a liquor store on Burnham Beer and Liquor. And so you raised me. You gave me my values. And 60 years later, the soul of our state is at stake. And that's why 1 million people strong said, we want our state back. We want to get back to people working together, solving problems, moving us forward. When Governor Walker was elected, he had not been honest with us about what he was going to do. And from the very beginning, week after month after month after week, he has torn us apart and thrown out every value we care about, starting in the very beginning when he gave big corporation tax breaks that will total over $2 billion over the next decade. And then what did he do to help pay for that? The biggest cuts in education in our state's history, not our values.
No.
And how did he help pay for that? Throw 63,000 people, many of which are women and children, off their health care, and another $500 million in Medicaid cuts? Is that our values of health care?
No.
Did he roll back the environmental laws one by one, whether it was throwing the wind energy industry out with its 600 good paying jobs? Is that our values?
No.
And most sadly, he said if we took the tough medicine last spring, then things would get better. And here we are, a year later, 6 straight months of job losses in a row, despite, as Tom just said, the national economy on the rise. But is our state on the rise?
No.
You know, you got to be hopeful, and I am hopeful. But when the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia does a study of the economic barometers of every state in this nation and what's going well for them a year after Scott Walker was elected, and it concludes and ranks every one of the 50 states, and where does it put Wisconsin?
Bottom.
Dead last. We took the medicine. It isn't making us better. He's not on our side. We need a governor on our side, and we're going to take back our state.
Yeah.
Not only do we not ask for much, but we know we can do better. And we are all good examples of that in this room, of who fights each time to make us better. And let me give you some examples. Again, you're the one that gave me my values of caring about the environment, moving kids out of poverty, about learning how men and women, like my grandfather and grandparents, came together to organize. Could any one of us individually doesn't have power, but together we do, and that's why collective bargaining is so important. I learned that early on, but I also learned it later, because I was a member of my union for 14 years, AFT Local 3628. I did my share of grievances for my members. I did my share of bargaining. Back then we bargained with Tommy Thompson. Now we didn't do a lot of bargaining, but at least we had collective bargaining rights. So as that environmental warrior of years, during those years, I went all across the state, helping citizens protect that corner of the world that they love the most. And why, when I announced last week I'm running for governor, I thought, you know, my hometown here knows me, and I'm going to be here in a few days, so where I go, the furthest possible away a place. And that is up in Ashland and Hurley, where they're looking for good paying jobs there too, but where I can walk in and people say, thanks, Paul, for coming, and we remember when you helped us protect those wetlands 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because those are the values that bind us together. And when the young man from Rural on Saturday told me that he was a student at UW Superior, and he was studying to be a teacher, and he wanted me to know that 14 of his classmates dropped out from being a teacher because they don't see how they fit in a future of education in the state. And I heard the same thing a month ago, not too far from here, at Boches de la Frontera, when a young Latino student told me, we need tuition aid. I want to go to school. I'm a good student. I want a better future. These common values unite us, and that is why I know that we will beat Scott Walker. But I also know that we need to show there is a better way. And that's what I've done as a county executive for the last 14 years. So after being this environmental advocate lawyer helping citizens all across the state, and a union member those 14 years, citizens came to me 15 years ago and said, run for county and executive. And I said, why me? Because anybody that's strong enough that Tommy Thompson had to deal with, and given your record of protecting Wisconsin values, you run for county executive. Ran first woman, re-elected a historic number of times. And during that time, every single day, I had the honor and privilege of working with 8 hard-working unions, day in and day out, year in and year out. And when times got tough, what I did is I sat down with them. I didn't demonize them. I didn't balance the budget on the backs of 2,500 employees. Instead, I sat down with them, and to their great credit, they agreed at the bargaining table the last 3 years in a row alone to $10 million in concessions. So not only would they stay on the jobs doing the work for people, plowing the snow, being deputies, being social workers, all those things you count on government to do for you, but it's respectful. It treats people respectfully, and they are proud that they made those concessions for taxpayers. So I am proof that you don't balance a budget on the backs of working people. You don't have to balance a budget on the backs of working people. And the way to move us forward is by working together at the table. And I know as a county executive what it takes for a community and for a state to work its way up. I've gone into the poorest neighborhoods and created the programs that help people get and keep jobs. I've worked with the business community on infrastructure, and roads and airports. And most importantly, I know from what citizens have told me, they want this quality of life of people getting together, solving problems together, treating people respectfully, because we share these same values. So as I am out here, as such and said, I and Peter, we're a pair. We drive the state together, no matter where they sent us this summer for United Wisconsin and Recall Wisconsin and Democratic Party. We went in every corner of the state, and we saw people like you, all united, all Democrats in many rooms, and then there'd be rooms of people who've never done politics before, but want their state back. And that's who I'm fighting for. Not just the million of us, but that's historic, who signed this recall petition, but all 5.5 million of us. Because what we share in common to get our state back on track for decent paying jobs for our kids' future is what brings us together. I am so proud of what we did. I am inspired. And as the nation watches us, they are looking to see us in Wisconsin stand strong and hold our hands and hold back this far extreme right agenda that Governor Walker is trying to force on our Wisconsin values. And they are watching us because they know if we can't stop that here, what happens to the rest of the nation? And while Governor Walker will have as much money as he wants and more, whether it's the Koch brothers, whether it's the Texas billionaires who can single-handedly write out a $250,000 check, or whether it's the fact that the audacity that on the very day 1 million signatures are submitted to demand a recall election, where people for the last 2 months, all of you, me and us, have stood out in the cold and stood out in the wind and missed holiday dinners, when he had the audacity on that day, not only to not be in the state working for us, not only not being in the state fighting for Wisconsin values, but where was he? New York. In New York. For a fundraiser by the former head of AIG, who last I recall, we all bailed out. We can do better. We must do better. We will do better. And united, we will restore Wisconsin to the state we love and grew up in. Thanks for all your doing.
We know we're going to have an exciting next few months. Our energies are going to be in a lot of different directions. We've got spring elections. We've got we're looking to the fall elections and taking the legislature back and making sure we re-elect the president. And then in the middle there'll be this recall election. And we know with Kathleen and many like her who are going to be out there fighting the fight that we're going to have a strong candidate ready to take on Scott Walker for that sprint to the finish. So thanks to you, Kathleen, for being here. Peter Barker is intending to join us. There is another Democratic Party event in Racine, and so he's on his way, but we're going to go on with the agenda. It's my pleasure now to point out another huge priority for the fall. Actually, let me introduce one person before I do that. We've been joined also by another progressive stalwart, one of the national leaders we have here in Wisconsin on labor issues, also a candidate for city treasurer, and that's State Senator Spencer Cox. Yeah. Thanks for being here. one of the huge priorities we have for this fall is for Wisconsin to continue to be the first in the nation and to be a tremendous leader. We were the leader on so many issues. We've been the leader on so many issues, from the first kindergarten to the first state to have a strong workers' comp system, to the first state to have public employees unionized to make sure that public employees could be strong middle-class workers, to being the first state that protected lesbian and gay and bisexual people from workplace discrimination. We were also the first state to elect an openly gay member of Congress, and that was Tammy Baldwin in 1998. And she's been a tremendous leader, not just on civil rights issues, but she's been one of the foremost champions in the Congress for standing up for veterans. She's been one of the foremost voices for a strong healthcare system because she knows from personal experience what it's like to have a family situation where you don't have adequate insurance. And we know that it's a huge priority to elect Tammy Baldwin. So I want to bring up here one of your friends. Tammy's not here tonight. I know we'll get her at some point if she's on the campaign trail. But Phil Walczak is going to give us an update on the campaign and let us know what we can do to really make a difference and win his Senate seat back this fall.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sachin and the great team here at the Milwaukee County Dems. Just a couple of quick items. Tammy Baldwin is running for U.S. Senate. You all know her, or many of you know her. If you don't, you can trust her to be the progressive champion that will make you proud to support. She stood up to Wall Street and fought for things like Glass-Steagall that prevented Wall Street from gambling with your money. She stood up to the big banks, made sure they had no immunity when they caused this housing crisis. She stood up to George W. Bush on the Iraq War and the tax cuts to the wealthy. So she's been there, and she's going to continue to be there for all of us as our next senator.
Yeah.
A couple of quick updates for all of you. We have opened just 2 weeks ago our statewide headquarters here in Milwaukee County, downtown Jackson in Wisconsin. Please come by, please see us, say hello, volunteer. Love to have you there. We just concluded a January jobs tour across the entire state of Wisconsin. Tammy traveled to Eau Claire, La Crosse, Manitowoc, Green Bay, Wausau, Stevens Point, Appleton, Neenah, etc. Talking to business owners, talking to workers, talking about the economy and getting jobs back on track here. Very successful, very well received across the state, so we were very pleased with that. We now have a united front in this campaign. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin has endorsed us. Senator Cole has endorsed Tammy to succeed him. Former Senator Feingold has endorsed Congresswoman Gwen Moore, Democrats across the state, national Democratic leaders. We have a united front, which is very special. And it's going to give us a huge opportunity to talk to voters across the state about this election, and we can come together to elect Tammy Baldwin to the United States Senate. We did have a very nice fundraising quarter thanks to many of your help and support. We raised a lot of good money, which we're proud of. We're going to need it. We all know what Citizens United means in this new world. We all know what kind of corporate cash can get dumped on this state and on our heads with unlimited contributions in the new Super PAC universe. So we've got to be strong. We've had a lot of success, but we're going to need more, and your help is going to be critical. So thank you for all you've done so far. I want to say a couple quick things about our opponents. I braved the elements on Saturday with some of you and watched the Walker Fest. It was tough, it was difficult, but all of our opponents in the race for U.S. Senate were on stage. All of them. All of them are wrapping their arms around Scott Walker. All of them are wrapping their arms around an extreme right-wing ideology. And this is what we're up against. It's very important that we all realize what's at stake. There's only a separation of 4 seats in the United States Senate. There are 23 Democratic seats up across the country, just 13 Republicans. We have a tall order, and they're coming to this state to win. What happens in this state is going to determine if we have a Senate that fights for the middle class or for the Tea Party. That's what's at stake. So I all know that the recall is foremost on our mind, as it should be. But I would just ask that you keep a long view as well, that recalling the governor, which we will do, is important. But we must also win in November. We must also win in November. We'll be organizing around the state this winter, spring, and summer. We have some events coming up already. Stephanie Stephanie, from our team, is organizing a, there it is, yeah, right here. She's organizing a series of 50 birthday parties, both across the state and across the country, for Tammy's 50th birthday on February 11th. These are great organizing events. They're great events to get mobilized, run this campaign. Please see her for details. We'll be organizing across the state as well. And we have sign-in sheets and bumper stickers at the door, so please grab one and sign in and join our campaign. I know that together we can win this thing, put Tammy in the Senate, and keep fighting for the values we all know that are so important. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Phil. Let me say two quick things. Stephanie, are there any Milwaukee County birthday parties for Tammy on February 11th already scheduled? Is anyone here having, is there an event scheduled already?
There is a Milwaukee event scheduled at Rigo Fund for that day. There are invitations back here on the back table, so grab one of those.
Great. So February 11th, fundraiser for Tammy for her birthday. Invitations are on the table. I'm sure it's on the Milwaukee Dems calendar as well. I just want to tell two quick stories. One is, I want everyone to take a look at Stephanie. Now, Stephanie is blonde, and her hair is cut kind of to the shoulder, and this is on purpose. And I know this. I'll tell you why this is the case. I worked for Tammy in 2000. And, you know, just even running for Congress, let alone the state, it's a big district. There's a lot of things happening at the same time. So what could we do if there were 3 parades happening at the same time? Well, you had to have Tammy at one of them. But then you had to have someone else riding in the convertible, throwing in the candy at the other places. And from a distance, you know, hey, you get away with a lot of stuff. So I think Stephanie's ready for this summer, riding in that convertible as Tammy's stand-in. All right, to be more serious. I had the opportunity to work with Phil and his team on one of these jobs events last week. And what was really important to me, I think, is there weren't any cameras there. Tammy sat for more than an hour with construction industry leaders, with small business owners, with folks from the local technical college who were working on entrepreneurship and small business development. And she spent most of that time, most of that hour listening, not talking, trying to understand what challenges small business and large business have, trying to understand what we could do differently, what Congress could do differently, what the Senate could do differently, what we as a citizenry could do differently to get this economy back on track. And I just couldn't imagine Tommy Thompson sitting in a room listening for an hour. I couldn't imagine Jeff Fitzgerald sitting in a room listening for an hour. He wouldn't even listen for 5 minutes if he could, you know, walk away. And we know that, and so that's why we need to elect Tammy Baldwin to Congress, not just because she represents our democratic values, but because she represents Wisconsin values, and the way we do business here, the way that we listen to everybody, and the way that we come forward united together to build a better Wisconsin. Are you guys with me to elect Tammy? And that comment about Jeff Fitzgerald is a great transition to our next speaker, who is a tremendous leader in Wisconsin. Now, when Senator Larson and Senator Carpenter and Senator Coggs and Senator Taylor, all of whom are here tonight, represented Wisconsin's best in going across the border and saying, we're going to slow this process down. And we appreciate them for doing that. We appreciate the legislature for doing that. And we've celebrated what they did. But the other house was still in session. And they were led by a tremendous legislator, by someone who served in Congress, by someone who served in the Assembly, by someone who knows how to talk Wisconsin talk, who knows how to make sure that we understand the basic issues about jobs and schools and healthcare that people are talking about and struggling with around their own kitchen tables. And we watched them on television, and we watched them on the computer, and we watched them stand up and not be afraid to stand up when they weren't following the rules, when they weren't following the law. And he was the one who stood up and made sure that we all knew every single bit of the evil that was being perpetrated by those Republicans in the state legislature. He's continued to fight for us. He's going to continue to fight for us, whatever he chooses to do here in the future. And we're proud to have him here with us tonight, the Minority Leader of the State Assembly, Peter Barkham.
Well, thank you all so much. It's great to be here with all of you. And I was asked to talk a little bit about our job situation, maybe just a short preview about the state of the state that's coming up. Now, the state of the state should be an easy address to give for the governor, right? It shouldn't be difficult at all. He can say, the state of the state is divided. We're more polarized than we've ever been before, and I'm responsible. That's how it should start, right? Then from there, he could go on to say, and I know that all of you certainly believe in Wisconsin values, and I'm sorry to represent, it's hard to recognize the values of the state anymore. Because no longer do we have somebody at the helm of our state fighting for quality education for Wisconsin values. No longer do we have somebody trying to preserve a pristine environment for this state for Wisconsin values. No longer do we have a governor of this state that's looking for basic fairness. But worst of all, in my judgment, by far perhaps worst of all, is that we do not even have clean and open government any longer in this state. Wisconsin democracy is at risk, and he should tell the people that. You know, it's so interesting to me as I travel around, you see the signs, and the Republicans, of course, at their rally, and their signs, they cross off the "re" and they say, "Call Walker, it's working." Well, the irony is, working, what's working? Working for who? Now let's look at the record. Let's talk about jobs, because that's one of the topics people ask me to talk about. You know, if there's one topic at this point that should unite Democrats and Republicans and independents and anybody in this state, it's trying to put people back to work. Because we know that this recession has lasted far too long. Now the good news is, in the United States, there's been 22 months of job growth in this country. Last month in the United States, there were 200,000 new jobs added across the country. What do you think the record was in Wisconsin? Once again, for 6 months in a row, ever since the governor passed his budget, which was his fundamental roadmap for the state, Senator Lena Taylor Kellogg, 6 months in a row, we went down. And you know what? That distresses me enormously. Because, you know, the irony is that Governor Walker loves to talk about his predecessor, Governor Doyle. Well, the irony is, if you look at the data, we were adding jobs. In fact, Governor Walker's best month on jobs was in January. And I don't think it's because job creators were so excited to see him coming. But subsequent to that, the record has been abysmal. Now, education, he would have us believe somehow that you can take $1.6 billion out of the education system, and somehow education can be the same or even better, as he tells us. But again, the record's clear. The Journal did a thorough report. We're the second highest state in the country in terms of cuts to education, but worse is performance. You know, the District Administrators Association, they analyzed it. 2/3 of the district have either had higher class sizes or fewer offerings. And as we look ahead to this next year, ask any district administrator, they'll tell you it's going to get worse. So who is it working for? That's the question. We know the environment's not getting better. Koch brothers, maybe. Well, in fact, I brought along a few props here because, you know, we've been getting this nice friendly mail from the governor. Nice glossy brochures. And I don't know, he says, many are calling Congress to do nothing Congress. Now, I don't know what that has to do with him. Because, you know, to contrast that he clearly is not doing nothing. He's causing destruction. That's the problem. But look at, you know, it's almost like anything in here it's almost like it's the opposite. You know, a $3.6 billion deficit has been wiped out without raising taxes. No. Excuse me, Governor Walker. Taxes have been raised in this state. Everybody that's a homeowner, your homestead credit has gone down, your taxes are going up.
Right.
If you're, worst of all, if you're a working poor person that gets up every day, works 40 hours a week, works 52 weeks a year, but only makes $9, $10 an hour, your tax liability went up because he cut the earned income tax credit. Now, where are the values in this state that you would go after the least of these to raise their taxes? Another point. Before he took office, Wisconsin lost 150,000 jobs. Now employer confidence up, we're creating thousands of new jobs. Well, we just went over that right? Another one talks about the fact that, the deficit has been eliminated. That's what he tells us all the time, deficit's eliminated. But then if you ask my colleague, Representative Fred Kessler, or Sandy Pash, or Richard Pudal, you read today in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, what actually happened is he sent a letter, just in the last week and a half, telling the Department of Health and Human Services federally that our deficit's still there, so we have to throw 60,000 people off of Badger Care. Can you imagine?
Does that mean he lied?
I'm going to get to that, Senator Taylor. I'm going to get to that. Because you know what? It's a rhetoric versus a reality. And the rhetoric versus the reality could never be more stark. It's unbelievable how far astray the rhetoric is from the reality. And as we see in this case. But the other interesting thing to me, and I know to many of you, is you would think that with all the chaos that's been created, with all of the divisiveness, and with him weighing a recall, now he didn't know, I didn't know, I don't think anybody knew, we would have 1 million+ signatures in 60 days, no less. Now what does that represent? 1 million signatures is 95% of the vote that our longest serving governor, Governor Thompson, got in his last run for re-election. 1 million votes is the number of votes the Republican before Governor Walker got when Mark Green ran for governor. That is a lot of votes. So you would think that he would say, it's time to bring us back together. It's time to maybe move to the center of it. But he doesn't do that. He keeps charging to the right. We saw in December with First Amendment rights. Can you imagine? Never in my wildest dreams could I have possibly imagined a governor anywhere in this country that would propose to pass out flyers out at the Capitol Square. You would have to have a permit. I mean, our founding fathers aren't rolling in their graves, they're spinning in their graves. And now this month, Senator Cogs, I see, is here, Representative Pash and Mayor Barrett and I yesterday had a press conference along with Representative Kessler over at the county, at one of the community health centers. And we reported the fact that, and once again, going back to your point, Senator Taylor, about, the truthfulness of people. He reported prominently, he turned back $38 million, that he thought we shouldn't have these health exchanges. Now, that raging liberal, Governor Perry, decided in Texas, they'd take that money. But he didn't tell us, and as the Milwaukee Journal reported, he didn't highlight, he barely told us that $11 million was turned back that had nothing to even do with the Affordable Health Care Act. It had to do with Medicaid eligibility, which would have saved taxpayers millions of dollars. Right. But because of his ideological blinders, he continues to pursue this far right-wing agenda. But the other thing that happened this past week, which it pains me to even tell you this, because it is so outrageous for the party that dares call themselves a party of family values. We brought up infant mortality reports. You had doctors from throughout the state of Wisconsin, public health officials from throughout the state. It used to be when I served in the legislature back in the late 80s and early 90s, when you brought together experts, at our request, you normally at least advance those proposals to the standing committee, right? They turned down 8 of the 11 recommendations, wouldn't even advance them. I mean, radical ideas like let's look at best practices and try and make sure we're all following those. Asking the health department to collect information on birth weights. I mean, to me,
about what he did on lead paint.
Yeah. And we'll get to that. But imagine this. I mean, if there was ever, first of all, financially, which is the Republicans' only blinders they wear are these green eye shades, is what does it do financially? Financially, it's even a benefit. Because when babies sit there for weeks and months with low birth weights, struggling to survive, it's expensive. But you know what? For the rest of us that worry about moral imperatives, can you imagine a greater moral imperative when Wisconsin has an infant mortality rate double that of Minnesota, and right here in Milwaukee, the highest in the nation, that you would dare not advance proposals to try and address something as basic and decent and important morally and ethically as infant mortality. They keep charging to the right. It's absolutely beyond comprehension. So I'm looking forward to that State of the State address. I'm sure as Senator Cox, Senator Larson's come back, we'll see if he's going to report what actually is going on. That he's divided the state like never before. That he's defiled Wisconsin values. That he's ignored our rich heritage. Because that's what he should be telling people. That we can hardly resemble this state anymore. And the worst of it is, and I told the story before, so you may have heard it, but I'll never forget, and it just sticks in me, because there was this guy, older guy, for a month straight, every single day, in blistering cold weather, February through March, walked around the square carrying this sign. And it made me chuckle every time I saw it, but it made me bristle. It said, Wisconsin, making Chicago look clean and honest for nearly 4 months now. And now it's 11 months. Now it's 11 months, and we can't take it anymore. So those million people that signed, all of you that brought forward those petitions, so that we can have this recall election, bless you all. Thank you so much. Great to be with you.